But let's go through the tail of the tape. I mean, Yordenis Ugas stands at 5'9". He has a 69-inch reach. He is 35 years old. His record reads 27-4, with 12 wins coming by way of knockout. He also fights out of the orthodox stance. Errol Spence stands at 5'10". He has a 72-inch reach. He is 31 years old. His record reads 27-0. 21 wins coming by way of knockout, and he is a southpaw. So looky here, man. Simply put, this is another one of them fights that I talked about, just like Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin, as well as Gary Russell versus Mark Magsayo, where these dudes are coming off these long, draconian fucking layoffs, and we have no idea what they're going to look like, okay? Well, in this case, they're not both coming off a layoff like was the case with Ortiz and Charles Martin, but one of them is. You know, Errol Spence has only had one fight since September of 2019. That was 3 years ago, people. And he fought Gatekeeper Dan to a fairly lopsided, unanimous decision. Now, in my opinion, watching the Danny Garcia fight again, and, you know, I didn't think Errol Spence looked as good in that fight as he did against Kell Brook or Sean Porter. I don't count the Mikey win because Mikey's a fat, overhyped lightweight. But he didn't look as good. I think the car crash had something to do with that. I also think that that's taken its toll on Errol Spence, as well as a little bit of the you know, the inactivity, as well as his alleged eye injury, which I don't believe. I think he did have, maybe had some kind of eye injury, but I don't think it was nearly as severe as people were making it out to be, and I think he could have fought Pacquiao if he wanted to. That was a duck, in my opinion. And you can say, well, Pacquiao was old, he would have beat him anyway. It doesn't matter. He still got nervous about it, and he ducked him. That was a duck. Just like he's been ducking Terrence Crawford for the past 4 years. But that being said, you know, if this was a healthy Errol Spence, it would be no doubt in my mind. I think Errol Spence would beat Ugas quite comfortably. And I said the same thing, and I remember myself saying the same thing going into the Danny Garcia fight, that we don't know what he's going to look like coming off the car crash and blah, 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 blah. And look what happened. He beat Danny pretty decisively. So I'm not going to make that same mistake again. Now, as far as Yordenis Ugas goes, you know, and he does, and before I move to Ugas, Errol Spence does have a 3-inch reach advantage over, and he's younger than Ugas by a few years. Now, as far as Yordenis Ugas goes, he's coming off, in my opinion, he's a little bit chinny, in my opinion. I think people forget that. Ugas is a bit chinny at times. He has fast hands, a good jab, puts his combination punches together puts his punches together pretty well. You know, a relatively good body puncher, just like Errol Spence is. So I'll say this, man. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I do, especially because like I say, if Errol Spence was 100%, I would be picking him to win this fight without question. But because there is that inactivity there, there is that, you know, the injuries there, the car crash, then the supposed eye injury, it does leave a cloud of doubt hanging over Errol Spence, all right? And also, we all know this is for a 3-belt unification. So if Errol Spence should win this fight, he's going to try to pull all of his dummy A-side sucker shit over Terrence Crawford, even though... And I have to touch on the Terrence Crawford situation briefly here, because a lot of you dudes are acting as if the second Terrence Crawford signs to the PBC, he's going to get an Errol Spence fight. And that's not the case. Al Heyman will milk that fight out for another 2 or 3 years before it actually happens. Okay? That's why I say Crawford should just stay with Bob and fight Josh Taylor, because that's another mega fight and 2 top 5 pound-for-pound guys. But that being said, I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to get too deep into Crawford, but I had to brush on it real quick. As far as Ugas goes, in my opinion, he beat Sean Porter. It was a good fight, but he should have got the decision. He did drop Porter in the 12th round. You could have said it was a slipper, he was off balance, but he landed a punch and it fell. That should have been a knockdown, and he should have got the decision in that fight. And he did beat Pac-Man. Now, that was a 43. Now, again, I don't really put too much stock into that Pacquiao win, only because Pacquiao was literally 43 years old and coming off a 2-year layoff. No excuses. He got the job done. I mean, it was a close fight, regardless of who you had winning. It was a very close fight, people, Ugas and Pacquiao. As was this fight here, Ugas and Porter. Ugas and Porter. So they were both close fights, but he was on the short end of the stick in one decision, and he got the right end of the stick in the other. So what are you going to do? But they were both competitive fights. Now, I also have to say this, man. All right, looky here, bro. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think Ugas is going to make it interesting. I think I think it'll be a good competition of the jabs. It'll be a good competition of the body punchers. Ugas has the tendency to leave himself open sometimes when he throws his flurries, and I think that's where Errol Spence can capitalize in this fight. That as well as like that right there that Sean Porter just landed. Let's rewind that. He has the tendency to leave himself open upstairs sometimes. Watch. Boom. Right hook. Anyways, I think it'll be a fun fight. I think it'll be a very competitive fight for a 3-bout unification, etc. so forth. However, bro, I'm going to tell you this now. The PBC aren't going to let Errol Spence lose this fight. Ugas doesn't have a lot of punching power. He only has 12 knockouts in over 30 fights. And there is no way Yordenis Ugas is going to win this fight on the scorecards, people. Not a fucking chance in hell. So I want you to keep that in mind. So, what do I think? I think, and I'm not making any excuses for Ugas if he beats him either. I'm not going to say Errol Spence was damaged goods or anything like that. But for my official prediction, I got Errol Spence winning this fight by a majority decision. Okay? I think it might be a controversial one. But again, the PBC aren't going to let this dude that they're trying to build into a pay-per-view star, they're not going to allow him to lose. Simply put. Okay? I don't think Ugas can knock Spence out. Like I say, Ugas doesn't have the most punching power in the world. And I don't think Spence can knock Ugas out either. And I don't know, and again, we don't know what Spence is going to look like after all this inactivity and injuries. So I think that I could see somebody maybe getting dropped in this fight. I see this being a very, very close fight, people. I think it's going to be another fight, just like Ugas' fight with Porter and Ugas' fight with Pacquiao. I think it's going to be a close fight, but it will go to the scorecards. And Errol Spence will win this fight I'm going to say by a majority decision. Okay? I think Errol Spence maybe drops him once early on in the fight. Gets a little bit of a leapfrog on the scorecards there, even though the scorecards are already filled out. But but controversial or no controversial, I do have Errol Spence winning this fight on decision, people. The PBC aren't going to let him lose, and Ugas is not knocking Spence out, guys. Simply put. So that's my prediction. I can't wait to see you guys when I get out of the summer camp. That being said, for my official prediction, I'm going with Errol Spence by majority decision and possibly a controversial one. That being said, please hit the like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video, and God bless you all. See you soon.